emergency pod as Craig Ludwig and I are roused from our usual Saturday day off activities. Sam Nestler is covering practice right now, but Luddy, apparently Sam is incapable of doing two things at once. So sorry, Sam. If he wants to join us, he knows how to do it. But I'm guessing between the Pete DeBoer availability, which was just happening, and then player stuff, he's probably busy. And Sean is on dad duty. So it's just us, let's. But
he's sledding, I saw.
I did see he was on the sledding hill with the kids. I'm jealous just because I wish we could do that down here more than that, 2 or 3 inches of snow we get once every 5 years. But what are you going to do? All right. Big emergency pod today. We saw this morning, I literally woke up to the news that Nils Lundkvist is out for the season. He's having season-ending shoulder surgery. He tried to play through it and could not, and now he will be done for the year. And then a slew of transactions, and it was Kyle Capobianco down to the AHL. They called up Christian Kyrou and Kyle McDonald from the Texas Stars. They put Mason Marchment on injured reserve. And then the big one, LTIR moves for Nils Lundkvist and for Tyler Seguin. And Luds, we didn't even know yet what was happening, but it was a sign that they were definitely going to be a move done because the Stars had enough healthy bodies that they did not need to put the guys on LTIR unless they were going to make a big-time trade, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, Granlund, Ceci. I think the first part though is with Nils. They kind of kept that under wraps, didn't they? We didn't see that one coming. We knew that he was out, but by our understanding, he was going through the reps in practice and things like that. And so typically with a shoulder, it's a little more rest than anything else. So obviously it was something that needs to be fixed and, let him get it taken care of now. And there's part of me that's going, okay, I'm happy and not happy with that, but I'm content with that because I was wondering if this phasing him out wasn't going to play in the playoffs and all this other kind of stuff. So I think we can put that to rest, hopefully. Now he'll just have to worry about getting another deal done. But with bringing Granlund in and Ceci, I think obviously I'm going to say that probably what would you say Mikael Granlund's probably the bigger move than Ceci, or are we equal in your opinion?
I am not going to call him equal, but I don't want to put Ceci on the back burner. And here's my first take on it. I think you're right. I think Mikael Granlund is probably the primary move. He was playing top line center minutes in all situations for San Jose. He is a veteran of this league. He still has elite skill, speed, and vision. And I think he makes this forward group, the top 9, better. That's probably number one. But remember, Luds, last week when we did our daily pod show, I gave you a list of players, right shot rentals, and Cody Ceci was right up there on that list. Now, I think you and I both said, boy, if we could find a way to get Seth Jones out of Chicago, that would be way better. But aside from, shooting for the moon, this is a much more realistic thing. And to me, the big thing is you get to upgrade your defensive depth, whether Ceci plays in your second pairing or your third pairing or even your first, I'm not sure yet. But you get to add a defenseman that they will trust. You get to add a forward that adds dynamic offense, and they avoided giving up any of their prospects. Liam Bichsel, Logan Stankov, and Maverick Bourque are all still members of the Dallas Stars, and I think that was a really important thing. The fact that this was just for picks, there was no salary retention, so that probably made the value a little bit less as far as what had to go back to San Jose. But I'll tell you what, they didn't put Miro Heiskanen on LTIR. They only did Lundkvist and Seguin, and I couldn't help but notice that as well.
Yeah, hopefully that's better news. And any news that's not season ending is good for us because it means that there's hope that he's going to return before playoffs or during playoffs. For Ceci, what I do is I look at the teams that brought him in the last 4 or 5 years, and it kind of tells me sometimes a little bit about what kind of defenseman you think he is. So it's Toronto. Toronto's an offensive team, right? I know with Chief, they're trying to be a little bit more defense. Then there's Pittsburgh, offensive-minded team. Then there's Edmonton, really offensive-minded team. And, so So that's where I'm there with that. And then I look at his points. It's not like he's racking up a lot of points. I look at his penalty minutes, and you're getting somewhere around 25 to 30 PIMs a year,
If
40,
that.
if that. So I just don't want to. I don't think we should oversell him, and I think he comes in and he can be a stabilizer back there. Hopefully, he's 6'2", 210, 215 pounds or so, something like that. So you bring in the size, but it seems like it kind of matches the MO, because when you would probably put Dallas into those teams that I just mentioned, being more offensively minded, even though they're one of the best defensive teams in the league. When it comes to Granlund, I think he's an assist kind of a guy. Don't look for him. He's probably a 15 to 20 goal a year guy right now. Good skater, as you mentioned. So I think that fits the MO of what they're looking for too now. And I think you've got him pinned right, somewhere in that third pairing, which is when everybody gets back healthy, we feel that the top six are going to be dynamic again.
Just imagine this, Luds. And I like the way Maverick Bourque is playing right now alongside Duchesne and Ben. But if Marchment is healthy and Sagan gets there for the playoffs, which is a big if, you have that line with Duchesne. Having Granlund available to be your third line center with Jamie Benn and probably Logan Stankoven, but maybe Maverick Bourque, means that you can keep the Hintz, Robertson, Johnston group together and still have three really dynamic centers. Then Sam Steele is your fourth line center, and you've got Oscar Beck, you've got Evgeny Dodonov, and either Stankoven or Bourque fighting for that spot, or Blackwell. That is the kind of depth that we're looking for up front.
Yeah, and I think, and I did Maverick service last night at the end of the show, because I had talked about Jamie Benn, Stankoven, and Steele, and it should have been Maverick Bourque in that third hole, because I think he's earned it, over what he's done most recently. And so I agree with you that Steele would be going down there with Blackwell, Beck, whatever that turns into down there. So I think what they're doing is they're trying to piece things together as much as they can, but you're still optimistic about what can happen with your other players. I'm more curious about Mason Marchment, when his return is, and is there a setback, or is he on schedule?
So I would like to address that for our listeners and viewers, because I don't believe that there is a setback. I think that Marchment going on IR was purely procedural. And what I mean by that is, why did they call up Kyle McDonald and Christian Kyrou from the AHL and send Kyle Capobianco down? It was purely financial. It was salary cap moves, because to utilize the most LTIR space, teams have to be as close to the salary cap ceiling as they can be. Well, the two highest salary cap hit players on the Texas Stars at this moment were Kyle McDonald and Christian Kyrou. So they had to put Marchment on IR to open up a roster spot so they could get closer to that upper limit. And the move, I believe, was they got up to within 103,000 of the salary cap ceiling. The only player that makes more as far as a cap hit on the AHL roster or in the prospect pool is Emil Hemming. The problem is that he's in juniors, Lutz, and you can't call up a junior player during his junior season unless you're going to play him in a game. And so because he got sent back to juniors, he's there for the rest of the year, and that's fine. You couldn't have called him up for his $975 cap hit and then send him right back down for, what we would call a paper transaction. So I fully believe that McDonald and Kyrou are only here for cap, for a paper move. I believe Marchment, as soon as he's ready to go, he'll play, because the Stars had enough healthy bodies to play yesterday and to dress a lineup against Columbus tomorrow, even with Lundkvist out. So for me, it's all mathematics, which is your favorite subject. And
salary cap gymnastics. That's what it's called.
It's your favorite, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
Look, Mark Janko
did a great job. You didn't even ask me for my input. Move on.
Well, I just want to say Jenks does a great job with his, and Mark Janko, the assistant general manager, who's their capologist, their cap guru.
And we're going to have him on, by the way. We're going to have Jenks on, and so people need to tune into that, and I think he can clarify all the things that you said and put it more in layman terms for the rest of us.
Here's the question. Can you make it through an hour show with Jenks in studio and not gloss over or glaze over a couple of times?
Well, I can't wait for the first thing that we're going to make him smile. We're going to see the trademark clap and rub your hands. Janko kind of giggles. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, there it is.
I can't wait for the stories with Jenks. But anyway, so they make all those moves, and that allows them to get, according to Puckpedia, 12.3 million in LTIR overages, meaning they can go over the salary cap ceiling by that amount, up to that amount. That is important because I truly believe that the return would have been different to San Jose for Ceci and Granlund if salary cap retention was in play. Now, I also saw that San Jose actually has all three of their salary retained spots filled right now, so they couldn't even have done so. So if Dallas needed cap retention, they would have had to have brought another team in, and that's not going to be free, Lud. So they saved the prospects we mentioned or current players in Bichel and Bork and Stankoven and maybe Emil Hemming. And they also were able to do it without having to give up further assets because they have this space. But my question to you is, do you think the Dallas Stars, A, are better than they were yesterday as far as their roster, and B, are they done? Because about 8 million or so, 8.5, I think was the combination of Ceci and Granlund. That leaves you about 3.5 in LTIR space, or maybe close to 4. That's another player if they wanted to.
I don't think they're done. No, I do not think they're done. Your first question is TBD. You know, I think that I want to see. I'm more easy with Mikael Granlund. To be honest with you, I think because he's a good skater and the way he plays, and and he's got, what did I say? He's got 871 games played, and he's somewhere around 600 points, right? So from that standpoint, he's got 170 some goals in those. So that's how I think. I think he's more of a distributor. He gets to the front of the net. I think of him as a bigger, heavier, solid player that will go to those areas that I complain about all the time. So I think he's going to fit in really well with this group. And again, for any defenseman coming in, if they're not playing this kind of system, we've heard it from a couple of guys that there's a change in system. So I'm not sure the system that they were playing in San Jose, and maybe they were playing something similar, which makes it an easier transition for a defenseman. Because we've seen how Dumba's adjusted or tried to adjust. Labushkin's mentioned it and things like that. So, but I think that Ceci, with his size and everything, you think you'd get a bigger presence along the walls and in the corners, and his numbers don't really say that. And again, I go back to the teams that bring him in. He doesn't appear to be that rock that's implanted in front of the net and makes it difficult. But that's what Bichel is there for right now, and Labushkin can play that way, and Dumba's been trying to play that way. So, but I think it's a desperate. I don't want to call it desperate, but kind of desperate times calls for certain moves to be made. And when you get the news where, whether it's Miro or Nill's going down, you got to do something here.
I feel like the Miro injury is probably the biggest catalyst of this, but losing Lundkvist is not a insignificant part in the sense that now you're down 2 defensemen, both of whom can play on the right side. And we always talk about the lefty versus the righty side. When you lose 2 of your D-core, that is a rather significant chunk of the backline end, and they have to figure that out. And I think that's probably what put this over the hump to get Ceci as well. That being said, Ludge, you're absolutely right. And I think people really need to know that this might be for Ceci a little bit of a work in progress to see how he adapts to the Stars' defensive man-on-man style systems.
Yeah, and the adjustment is with the speed of this team. Dallas has got some speed, and as a defenseman, and there's a lot of the 2 guys when you're in a D zone. There's a lot of the 2 guys getting out into the neutral zone, and Essa and guys, Miro with the flippers, and kind of throwing that pass up in the middle, and they play on the run, and they get up and they jump and they go, and they want their defensemen to be involved, which I think that CC is going to be okay with that part of it. But you have to be able to sort things out so that there's not problems coming back the other way.
All right, we have a couple more things that I want to ask Luds, but first we have to give ourselves a little bit of ad love, so we will do that right here on this DLLS Dallas Stars Emergency Pod. Let's begin with Sleeper. You can obviously you should know by now, as we've talked about it a lot, it's the best fantasy league platform out there. You can put your ball knowledge to the test by picking whether your favorite or least favorite players will have more or less than their projected stats each week. Last night on our post-game show, I told you that today we've got a big one, Boston versus New York. The Rangers with JT Miller now against the Boston Bruins. I'm going to repeat what I said last night. David Pastrnak, Pasta for our producer John, is on a tear. Let's take Pasta to score more than 0.5 goals this afternoon against the Rangers, netting you more than double your money. With Sleeper, the more picks you combine, the more you can win, all the way up to 100 times your money. Sleeper keeps you in the loop with instant alerts and breaking news and major injuries like today. Stay ahead of the game and keep track of league updates in real time so you're always informed and ready to outsmart your friends. If you think you have what it takes, new users can download the Sleeper app and use the code DLLSstars to get $55 in free entries when you place a $5 contest. Apply to any contest, doesn't have to be your first. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details, and it's currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And one more, let's talk about Game Time. Look, you want to get tickets to the best sporting event, concert, theater show, comedy show. I'm going to one this afternoon in Fort Worth. I'm not going to tell you which. Well, you could probably figure it out. But you need Game Time to get the best picks, to get tickets for the events even easier. Game Time Picks has this new feature filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. And of course, you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best valuable. Plus, maybe you're trying to be one of those extravagant folks that buys Super Bowl tickets. Well, you can use Game Time. You get seat views of the venue. You get on-time ticket delivery. Lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code DLLS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code DLLS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, Luds. I just saw, and our producer, John, has been fantastic at sending us some interesting updates from practice because people are tweeting out things they hear from Pete DeBoer and Jim Nill. Jim Nill on Mikael Granlund, per Brian Ray, who is the television host on Victory Plus for the Stars. He works with Sevi. By the way, we should get Brian and Sevi on. I don't know if we have to have them as a duo, but we should have them in studio. Maybe we can get Sevi during the Four Nations if he's not on the ice training, because he does a lot of that as well. He's great. And I'd love to hear the two of you go back and forth from your old Stars Live days. That would be a lot of fun when you two were together in studio. Jim Nill on Mikael Granlund. He calls him a Swiss Army knife. Ironic because he's Finnish, but said he was a line mate of Matt Duchene in Nashville, and he knows the other Finnish players really well. Of course, he will also serve as an alternate captain for Finland at the Four Nations. So we're talking about we talked about this before, veteran guy, knows the league and knows a fair amount of the Stars players. What do you think about the added layers of knowledge? How can that help integrate a player into a team quickly?
Again, I go back to that kid that played for the Dallas Stars that's running that program, Yuri. And if Yuri is bringing him, Yuri is giving him a letter. He knows there's leadership qualities there. He loves the way he plays. I think Yuri Lettinen kind of tries to bring players in that remind him of himself, which is a high standard. So I think anytime you have a Yuri Lettinen that is condoning and acknowledging and saying yes, and it would not surprise me at all that there was a call made to Yuri prior to this move being consummated.
Okay, we got another update from Jim Nill from Robert Tiffin. Jim Nill is optimistic. He just tweeted this out. Tyler Seguin's recovery is on track, but they don't yet know a return date. He says Nill does expect Miro Heiskanen to return before the end of the season. So that tracks with what Pete DeBoer said to us the other day of he doesn't believe this is season ending. No update from DeBoer on Heiskanen, according to our good friend Bruce Levine. He said DeBoer will let them know about the second option on Monday. I'm guessing that means the second opinion, Leds, that we were talking about last night.
Yeah, and I see these guys are coming into town today. They're going to be in town tonight. They're going to be available tomorrow. Which is that not the epitome of from the outhouse to the penthouse in one swift move here. I mean, coming from San Jose, and you're not really at the top of the mountain yet, but you can see the top of the mountain. So I would think these two guys are coming in very excited at this time of the year to go from what's been going on, where they've been playing and kind of trudging through and more down the ladder than up the ladder, to coming into a team that's got an opportunity to win a Stanley Cup and to, at this moment, be a big part of it and have an opportunity of, whether it's 10 games, 20 games, or the rest of the regular season, to prove that you belong in the lineup when the playoffs come around.
It's amazing. You talk about from the outhouse to the penthouse, which is a great line, by the way. The move just happened the other day, right? The big blockbuster Mikko Rantanen trade involved Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall went from the Blackhawks, clearly in the outhouse right now, to the Carolina Hurricanes, which is as close to the penthouse, I think, in the Eastern Conference as you can get, save for maybe the Washington Capitals right now. So this is the second time, but this isn't new, Luds, right? The trade deadline happens. Teams go and they shop on the marketplace of teams that are not contenders, and most of them move to ones that have a shot. But there's a difference between having a shot and going to a team like the Stars, where they've been to the conference final in back-to-back years, and they're thinking that this player or two, might be enough to put you over the hump.
Yeah, and wouldn't you think? I'm just thinking of both players when they're looking at the lineup and they're looking at lines and D pairs and things like that. I'm thinking that Mikael Granlund probably feels a little bit more like he's going to be in the lineup from now until whenever this season is over with, right? Because there's been some juggling going on. But then again, the way that, to me, it seems like Ceci's got an opportunity, and if you're going to take a spot, obviously Nils is out. So you're looking at, and if you're bringing in another forward, you're looking at, trying to beat out, would it be Brendan Smith or Matt Dumba, in order to be a regular on the sixth there. So I just look at it from the Granlund standpoint. He's going to be not necessarily competing for a job nightly. And I think Ceci, if he gets in here and gets his feet underneath him as quick as he can, and you see what he can add. And it's not just about the big size again. I go back to, I think they're bringing him because they know that he can add a little bit of, offense to it, just because of the teams that I mentioned that he's been with. And when I look at penalty minutes, it doesn't mean a lot, but it just means that you're not, sometimes I think you look at a player and you see their size and you're expecting them to be that kind of a guy. And he's not. And I don't think he's going to be like that. So he is who he is.
I'm pulling this up real quick just for a comparison so we can see. Look, we all knew that Granlund was having a good year. 45 points in 52 games, which leads San Jose in scoring. He's a -8, but that's more of a product of the team. Compare to Macklin Celebrini, who has 37 points, but he's -20, right? Clearly, Granlund's a better defensive player as a forward. He's a really well-rounded guy. Cody Ceci, 15 points, fine. I don't think we're bringing Dallas is bringing Cody Ceci in for offense. But what I wanted to look up really quickly, and I'm doing this on the fly here, is the penalty kill. Because, Luds, Cody Ceci leads San Jose in shorthanded time on ice. And who does that sound like? Esa Lindell.
Yeah, and he should. I mean, he's a big body. He's got a long reach, and he should be a good penalty killer. And again, like you said, he's not racking up a lot of minutes, but I don't think anybody's racking up a lot of minutes on that team. So I don't think we should kind of use that stat so much. But yeah, I would expect that when you have that. And again, I think one of the areas, and I talk a lot about the Vegas D-core, which I'll tell you, I was a little surprised with them in the two games that Dallas played against them, because I thought they were better than that in front of their own net. Dallas did a good job with that. But I think when you add another big frame back there, I would think that it would make Jake Ottinger fairly happy, is if you can move a couple bodies another inch or two so I can see these shots, Jake's only going to get better if Ceci can do those kind of things.
Now, Granlund has 59 career Stanley Cup playoff games under his belt. A lot of them were with Minnesota back. And interestingly enough, we'll see if Matt Dumba remains on the Stars roster or not. But Granlund played with Dumba for a number of years. And then he was with Nashville, and he had some playoff, but not a lot of long-term runs. The early days with Minnesota, they got out of the first round, but that's as far as they went. And he's been one and done every year since, but he hasn't been Granlund to the playoffs since the 22 Stanley Cup playoffs. Cody Ceci, Luds, has gone deep in the playoffs each of the last 3 years with Edmonton, including playing 24 games last year on the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup final. That has to be important as part of bringing Ceci in, a guy who's played on the biggest stages of the Stanley Cup playoffs?
Yeah, it actually helps. I mean, you can, and again, it's about relaying the messages to some guys that don't go deep into the playoffs and things like that. And again, a guy that was there playing with a couple superstars, in Draisaitl and McDavid, Hyman. So he's used to playing with those kind of players and the speed that they have and all that other kind of stuff. And I think that's where he can use that big size of his, and hopefully what he does in his own zone is he knows that he needs to get the puck to the top guys for the Dallas Stars.
What I really like, again, we'll have some time to break this down, but I was just thinking about this because I saw one of our chats, Hendy said 23/CC on penalty kill back end would be good. Honestly, I wouldn't mess with Lyubushkin and Lindell to start, but adding Ceci on that penalty kill, especially knowing that you might, we laughed about it last night, might ease off Harley's minutes on the penalty kill if he's going to be doing more power play with Heiskanen out. But just think of the options of, if you wanted a lefty-righty shutdown pairing of Lindell and Ceci, allowing Harley to stay with Lyubushkin, that's a pretty solid group of 4 before you have Miro Heiskanen back in the lineup. You also have Leon Bichel, so maybe you spread it out. This move gives Pete DeBoer and his staff some options, Lud, so it's not as though they look at the injuries to Lundkvist and Heiskanen and go, well, we have no other choices.
I don't look at it as a group of 4, to be honest with you. It's a group of 3. Essa's out there for a minute 40, minute 50. And and that's a good luxury now. I don't think you're going to take anything away. I don't think you have to take anything away from Essa as far as minutes. I think he thrives.
I don't either.
And killing penalties. He does it so effortlessly. He knows how to go when he's supposed to go, and he knows how to calm it down. And so I think the minute and a half, minute 40, sometimes 2 minutes that he plays out there, he comes back to the bench, he's not even breathing hard because he's in the right place, does the right play at the right time. So if you're able to rotate, and that's where I think you can take some of those minutes away from Thomas Harley. So if Ceci and Lyubushkin can pick up those other 2 guys that would, predominantly play with Essa, that frees up some minutes for Thomas Harley. If he only gets out there for the last 15 like he's been doing, he's only been catching the ends of some of the PKs, and it still saves some minutes for him on the power play.
So then my next question to you goes to, and I did see we have a couple super chats, so we're going to get to that as well.
Nice.
Yes, this is one of those things where we're just going to become a running bit of when.
Are you saying buckle in or what?
When we do I'm saying buckle in, because if we are going to do a DLS Stars podcast, whether it's a regular daily pod, the pre and post game show, an emergency pod, they will not let us leave, period. And we're going to have to do a couple more ad reads in just a minute because we got to 30. I didn't even think we were going to get to 30. And now we have over 200 live viewers watching right now and listening. We really appreciate. You said earlier you don't think the Dallas Stars are done, that Jim Nill, who, of course, in his availability today at practice said he didn't rule anything out. Jim is never going to show his card. I always love when people ask that question because they have to, but he's not going to tell you, yeah, we're not doing anything, or yes, we're definitely. He's just going to keep it right down the middle. Here's my question to you, Lutz. If you know that, I mean, again, we don't know for sure, if Tyler Seguin will indeed be available in the playoffs, if Miro will be back before the end of the regular season, I know these are big ifs, and this is your group, what else are they going to add? What more would you look at to bolster this already pretty deep team now that you have Granlund up front and Ceci on the back end?
Well, I think that you're never going to go wrong by adding another defenseman. And again, we've seen how the defensemen have come in and out of the lineup and things like that, and whether they're satisfied when they're, but also you can see how they can get banged up. I mean, we've seen that go down. And, in the way I look sometimes at the way that Thomas Harley plays, and he kind of gets up the ice and he's all over the place. And Thomas isn't 240 pounds. You know what I mean? So, but he does a good job of avoiding some of that.
He's bigger than people give him credit for, though.
He's tall,
strong, and he's muscular. He's not some, he's not some Owen or Sam size body.
Well, nobody's Sam size that I know.
Fair enough.
No, I think you're always looking. And again, if you're going to be adding because of what you're possibly and hopefully having come back in the lineup, it's just depth players. It really is, and I think they're comfortable with Beck being in the lineup. So I don't think you were trying to replace him. I think you're comfortable with Blackwell being in the lineup, Steele in the lineup. So you really don't have a lot, but you may be able to upgrade in that spot. And I don't know if there's a better Beck out there that they could bring in or would even want to bring in. And again, I just don't. And when it comes to it, you're looking in the minors, right? You're looking at those guys down there. Have we seen anything? Is Blue Mel going to come up here? Is he going to fit in? I don't know if they've given these guys enough opportunity. And if they haven't, I'm not sure if they have the confidence. Again, it's different to play in the first 20 games of the regular season. Now you're looking to see which guys can come up here that you're going to bring in for the playoffs. And if they're not sticking in the lineup for 3-4 games in a row, sometimes it tells me they're not, that confident in them.
I want to talk more about this, but we have to do a quick ad break. We'll do that now. And up next, more with Luds and the prospects as this big emergency pod continues here on DLLS. All right, let's talk about Ice Shaker. That's right. Luddy did this yesterday, but I'm going to do it today. They don't want to throw him off at all. Got the perfect gift for the passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you've heard of Ice Shaker. If you haven't heard Luds talk about it, Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and Major League Baseball, and will make the ideal gift. It's created and used by the Gronkowski brothers. Ice Shaker has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles, and this is the bottle you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use the code ALLCITY25 at checkout to save 25% on your order. Kitchen grade stainless steel bottles that won't absorb odor like the plastic bottles do. Apparently, they are just better. I like all the water that I use is stainless steel now. We stayed away from the plastic. Patented twist in the agitator to help break up the powders, but it's silent when you shake it so you don't have that annoying ball that rattles around like some of the other protein shakes. And is third-party tested, will hold ice for 30-plus hours. Means it will stay cold. Order your team-branded bottles today at iceshaker.com. Use the code ALLCITY25 for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. All right, now we do have to talk.
I just want to say, if you still have your drink left after 30-plus hours, don't bother getting an Ice Shaker.
I'm going to plug one more thing before we get back into our emergency pod, and that is becoming a DLLS diehard. And if you do, one of the great perks you have is the watch party. You can get a 20% discount on the tickets, which are extremely limited, to the first ever DLLS watch party at COSM February 6th. So it's coming up this week. Celtics Mavericks with our DLLS Mavericks show crew. Make sure that if you haven't already, get those last minute tickets. Plus, if we get them all sold out, I know for a fact our GM, Ben, has said he's going to put all his efforts into doing a Dallas Stars DLS watch party, maybe even at COSM. Wouldn't that be fun? Luds, we've got to get over there and see this place. I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah, I tried getting over there about 2 weeks ago, and when I went online to get buy a couple tickets, they were sold out, and they were sold out the next night, and the next night, and the next night. So if you're planning on getting over there, you got to look ahead of time.
And by the way, being a diehard, that right down there, right there, you get access to the Discord. And it's not just about teasing Luds when we do the damn Discord channel. I have heard from our diehards that there is a great place during the game, whether you're at the AAC or watching at home or wherever you are, to chat about the Stars game as it's happening. We love our chat during our pregame show, postgame, our emergency pod right now. But you can also chat with your diehard friends in the Discord on the Stars channel, which is something that you can do if you sign up. And there's a lot of other perks, but that is about being a DLS diehard. Scan the QR code, go to alldls.com, sign up today. Okay, Luds, you said something interesting right before the ad break, and I wanted to bring you back to that. We're talking about doing the prospects, and has anybody from the AHL really stuck? And I think the answer is not yet.
Yeah, well, my thing is what we've seen from the guys that have been up and the guys that have got an opportunity to play. There's, and this is just for me personally, and it's not a negative thing towards them. For me personally, it hasn't blown me out of the water, anybody. Same. But unfortunately for those players, I'm comparing them to the guys that are here. Okay. And I'm talking about the top 3 line kind of guys. So, and I think the other thing is, and the reason I say that is when you look at Steele, Blackwell, and Beck, There's a lot of trust that's there from the coaching staff, and they just do the right things to be the so-called fourth line guys. And
they were great last night with Brendan Smith
exactly.
again.
And it's not about the offensive output for them, as you know. It's about how they go about. And generally, I mean, when you talk about a bottom pair defenseman and your fourth line, you know what you're really trying to do is you're trying to get your job done, but and not cost anything. And you're really ultimately you're trying to get a rest for the top four defensemen and the top three lines for the Dallas Stars. Those guys can get a little rest, but they don't have to keep rolling them over and double shifting guys, because they can throw those guys out there. They trust that they're not going to spend a lot of time in the offensive zone. Jake, the goaltender, and Casey trust that when they're in the defensive zone, they do the right things. So that's why I don't see anybody replacing those guys. But you have to have guys that if one of those guys go down, you can plug in there. And that's why I think you bring guys up, you keep books like they do and notes and say, you know what, if we need someone, this is the guy that can fill that right wing spot on whether it's the third or fourth line. They're not going to fill, more than likely, they're not filling a spot, on the top two lines.
That's the most important thing. As you said, you don't have to contribute offensively to play that fourth line role, but you have to make sure that you're not contributing negatively to the defensive side of it. If you're getting scored on, you're gone. If you can play responsibly and then chip it in like they did last night, that's just icing on the cake.
Yeah, and a lot of people will talk about the plus minus, and it is a hard thing. And a lot of times it's out of your control, especially for the best players when they're down a goal and they're out there playing 6-on-5 and there's no goaltender in there. And honestly, I think that shouldn't even be a minus for those guys. But anyway, it can end up being a minus. So the way that you say that is you just don't want to be a minus at the end of the night. You want to be even, or you want to be plus. And if you're doing that, you're doing what they're expecting, and you could argue that, well, man, I don't know, our fourth line's on the ice a lot and the goaltender's making a lot of 10-bell saves. Well, that's a different story. But we're not seeing that with this group that we're talking about here.
All right, so just to recap, if you're just joining us, we are doing this emergency pod because the Dallas Stars had a whole flurry of activity, a bevy, if you will, of roster moves, because we have the trade. Mikael Granlund and Cody Ceci are now Dallas Stars, traded from the San Jose Sharks for a first-round pick in 2025. I know that's not an easy thing to give up, because the Stars have really done well with their early round drafting over the last 6 or 7 years, and a conditional third-round pick. The third-round pick will be in place if the Dallas Stars make the Stanley Cup final this year. If they do not, that drops down to a 2025 fourth-round pick that they got from the Winnipeg Jets. So honestly, Luds, when we just talk about that, forget about the injury news, which we'll recap in a minute. Just the fact that they were able to add two veteran players, one on up front and one on the back end, without giving up any of their top young players, Bischel, Stankoven, Bork, Hemming, anybody from the AHL roster. I'm not saying I'm not willing to part with any of those names, but the fact that they were able to keep those guys intact, which Jim Nill said in the press availability today, that he wasn't moving those guys. But the fact they were able to make those moves without losing any of those players, because we know other teams know who the Stars like and who they don't, that's a big win for me.
Yeah, and I think a little bit of that had to do with hopefully the prognosis for Miro being able to make it back, Marchman coming back into the lineup. I think if those guys are out long term, like where you don't know exactly where Tyler is, you may have to, maybe you had to go a different route. But again, you're at the point where you've got some hope these guys coming back, and you've got to do what's best. And again, I think when it comes to Jim Nill and making moves and Mark Janko, as we talk about, they don't make a lot of bad moves, and they think things through and they look in the future. They've got a crystal ball up there that they use, and they work well with the money and what all the tools that they have at their resources, and they have a great scouting staff.
Now, our recap of the injuries was, in case you missed it, Nils Lundkvist is out for the rest of the season. He suffered a shoulder injury earlier this year, tried to play through it. He got to a point where he simply couldn't, and so he is having season-ending shoulder surgery. That's probably part of why, along with Miro Heiskanen's injury, they went out and got Cody Ceci as part of this deal. And Letty, from a Lundkvist standpoint, it's very disappointing because I think he made real progress this year, And up until the last few games where he was what we thought was a healthy scratch, and that started to bring in some doubts of, do they trust him? They played him in a lot more situations this year than we saw in the previous couple years.
Yeah, and with Miro out and Thomas picking up that first power play unit, I think that's where Nils could slot in on that second one. He'd almost replace the minutes that Thomas was getting, or the minutes Thomas wasn't getting, however you want to look at it. I think that was a good spot because Nils just does the little things. He finds a way to get pucks to the net. That's one thing he does, is he makes sure he gets pucks to the net. Did he only sign a 1-year deal, or did he sign a 2-year deal coming back this year?
I believe he just signed a 1 year because he's still an RFA, but I believe that he has arbitration rights after this year, which will be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, exactly his situation where he's at right now, obviously. So, I think it's tough for me for Nils because I like the progress. I think that they gave him some information, what they needed out of him, this summer and then at the start of the year. And he came out, what did he come out once or twice maybe? But every time he came back in, you saw a little bit more, and then you saw a little bit more. Then he got that long stretch before he got injured, where he stayed in the lineup.
Here's an interesting question for you about Nils Lundkvist. What if, and this is just me speculating, so don't take this as any sort of reporting or if I know anything from inside the team, which I clearly don't.
You're not talking to me because I don't take any.
I know.
Okay.
Okay. No, this is just simply my thought. And tell me what you think about this. What if we were right? What if, even though Nils has been better this year, as we get to the harder, heavier time of the season and into the playoffs, they still weren't totally sold on that based on the other members of their blue line? I'm not saying that they did this because this is an easy out, but what if this becomes sort of a way for them to upgrade the physical side of their defense?
Don't be going down the Jacob Trouba road. Don't you dare do that to me.
What if, I'm just saying.
Are you going there?
I'm just saying twofold. One, yes. And two, what if it just allowed them to kind of save face with Nils Lundkvist, who could even improve next year? He has to be re-signed, but he is an RFA. And maybe this is where they could make that move for Trouba. They're going to have to spend a lot for that, though, because they need a lot of salary retention.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that obviously got a lot to do with it, right? Is the salary cap. I mean, I think he's making $8 million. So, and I don't see Beaker going, okay, we'll pick up half that. But that's what they would probably have to do, is pick up.
They have to pay for it too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then the other thing on that side is, we talked about this a few shows ago as far as Trouba goes. It was a decision. His wife is going to be a doctor or a nurse or something like that. And this was the whole move from New York. What it sounded like was her spot. If she had to move out of New York, was Anaheim was on the top of the list. So again, that's another decision, another factor that might come into play as far as Trouba moving and leaving from there.
The other question is this is fun. Let's just have fun with Jacob Trouba for a minute. If you had Heiskanen, now look, this is the thought I had, Lutz, is if Miro was done for the season, which they both DeBoer and Nill have insisted he's not, which is good news. But if he were, and they have time before the trade deadline, March 7th, I think there's a no-brainer. You go get Jacob Trouba if Miro's out, because you need something on that side.
You're not going to let it go, are you? You're just
no.
Yeah.
But here it is. If you have Miro back, you have Heiskanen, you have Lyubushkin, you have Ceci, you have Lindell, you have Harley, you have Bischel.
You have a lot of opportunities that you can wheel and deal with. Do you need
Jacob Trouba with that 6?
Yes.
Because if
you're asking me, yes. I like Jacob Trouba. I know there's people out there that
don't.
Yeah, and I'd be honest with you, I don't know. The problem that I have is I'm not sure if he's a number 2 to put next to like Miro. I don't know if he is. I think he's more a 3 or 4. I think if you could have him in your second pairing, and if you needed to put him up there, but he's not a power play guy. I mean, I know he could probably, he's that a little bit of that, but I don't look at Jacob Trouba as a power play guy. I think he's a guy that
I don't either.
He scares the hell out of a lot of players that are coming his direction.
How about that clip I sent you against Calgary from the other night?
Yeah.
Where he tossed Nazem Kadri around twice. Yeah, you like that, didn't you?
He makes people part of the advertising on the board. So, but I think that's an element that we like. And again, for a long time, there have been people calling for him to be suspended because of some of the hits that he's laid. But when you look at him, they're textbook hits. I mean, it's hard. And he hasn't been suspended because the NHL the guys that are doing the department up there that are handing them out and stuff like that, they've never found a way. I mean, they have found a couple, but I think that he's a physical presence out there that makes other players a little weary of getting and flying around in the offensive zone and through the middle of the ice. So, and again, he's not but Trouba's what, 30? Is he 30 years old now?
I think so, yes.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. So it's not like he's in his prime. So, yeah, I think if that was going to happen, it'd have to be the right fit for the Stars, personnel-wise, but probably more importantly is financially.
So Trouba is 30 years old. He will turn 31 toward the end of February on the 26th.
And what does he have? What's his term left?
His term left, I will have to look that up. So bear with me here just a second, but I can pull that up pretty fast because I'm on Puckpedia here. So Trouba's contract is this year and next year at $8 million AAV. Yeah, so you need return, you need retention. Here's the thing, though, Lutz, and I know that Liam Bichsel fans aren't going to like this. If you did find a way to make the Trouba deal work, Liam Bichsel's probably your 7, meaning he's going to go play in the AHL, and that may not be a bad thing at this point in his career.
Well, I mean, then that's up to Liam to push somebody out of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, and I think he's done a pretty good job of just what I see now since the first time he came up and the end of that little stint that he had was his consistency. And do I want him to be more physical? Yes. And I think, but he's got to feel comfortable with that. And I think in the beginning, he was trying to be a physical guy. And there were times where he may have been trying to be physical a little bit too much, and he took himself out of a position as far as defending. He opened up some space for some people. And so, but that's just a learning process, man. I mean, he's a young kid. Is he 20? He's 20 years old. I don't even think he's 21 yet, right?
I want to say he's 21. Let me look while you keep going. Yeah, go ahead. I got you.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, you kind of, wherever this came from, they talk about defensemen kind of coming to their own. You kind of know what you're getting, and they know who they are after they get somewhere around between 250 and 300 games. And I think there's other defensemen that figure that out sooner than that, but that's kind of the average, what they talk about. So he's got some runway yet to be able to figure himself
You're right.
out.
He's only 21 in May.
Yeah, okay. So Luds is right once.
Luds is right. We should never question you.
Time for an ice shaker. So he's got time to grow into it.
Amazingly, I thought we were going to do a 10-minute emergency pod, and we have segment 4 coming up because we're going to talk to Sam, who is going to join us momentarily here on DLLS Dallas Stars Emergency Pod Time. But let's talk about being a diehard one more time. And why? Because I mentioned about the watch party and some of the perks that you can get there. There's a QR code down on the screen right there. And you can scan that with your phone, or you can go to alldls.com, click on the diehard program, and sign up. I was mentioning the Discord. Apparently, our diehard friend Adam is the worst, if you read the chat. But other than that, everybody's great in the Stars Discord during games. Or not during games, anytime. It's a great community where you can chat and have conversations. You only get access to the DLS Discord and all the channels, Stars, Mavs, Rangers. There's a movies channel if you really want to go deep dive with the craziness that is our producer John about movies, which he's very passionate about. You can do that on there, and he'll give you his top 15 Wes Anderson films and why, a full breakdown on that may be talking people out of being a diehard. But sign up for your annual subscription. You also will get a free promo code for 1 free t-shirt for each year you sign up. You get to pick whichever one you want inside the DLS merchandise store. You've seen Luds, myself, Sam, Sean wearing the DLS shirts. They're great. They're soft. They're comfortable. And on top of all that, you get the diehard level access for all the writing, the articles, the opinions from Sean, Sam, and all of our writers at DLS. It is worth every penny. Okay, look who it is. It's the Samboni himself from Frisco. Sam, I know it's been hectic and crazy there, but how are you doing right now with all the chaos that we've dealt with this morning?
Yeah, doing good. It was chaotic this morning with all the news, obviously, and then on top of that, the toll road had a huge accident and construction, and there was parking issues here because there's a huge MMA or jiu-jitsu.
I just want you to know that's not me.
It's not me either. Can you hear
What's
that
going on, Sam? Sam, is your belly rumbling a little bit?
This is Zamboni.
I don't know. You can blame it on the Zamboni. Go ahead.
How would you hear my belly from all the way up here? It's in my ears.
No, you're getting some sort of audio glitch that is only perpetuating the narrative of Sam the
good.
plumbing
Sounds like
disaster.
something about a toilet going on.
Good,
Boy,
good. I can't wait.
Can't even write this stuff, Luds. It's too good.
Well, I'm just gonna push through that anyway then. But
Oh.
so it's just been chaotic over here. But the news of the day has been fun and made it fun, and it's just been. I mean, we got to speak to Pete. Practice was changed from regular to optional. I'm just gonna keep talking, and while these two hooligans just can't be professional over
It
here.
sounds like you have a demon in you.
What am I supposed to do? It's not me. I'm not doing anything here.
It's definitely your
Have an
audio, but you can't do
Alka-Seltzer.
anything about it. The only thing you could do would
The
be to
Wi-Fi
hang.
is really bad here, so that might be part
blame
of
it
it.
on anything.
Yeah, well, you're in
You
Frisco,
guys,
right?
I could be ripping farts over here. You wouldn't hear it from where my AirPods are. You couldn't even hear the music behind me last
Oh
game.
well,
Yes, I'm
we're
in
both
Frisco.
cry laughing. So keep it up. Let's go. We'll get serious. I promise. Let's.
Yeah, so I did not hear any of this because I just jumped on. But the honestly the biggest thing that took away from today was how Jim Nill was not willing to give up any of the players that we thought would be considered in these trades. Right, the Bischels, the Borks, Stankovens, any of those guys. They essentially just Jim said flat out we weren't giving those guys up. We were not going to have that happen. And the reason I asked him, I said, you're so adamant about not giving up first round picks unless it's really worth it. What made this deal worth it for a first round pick? And that was number one was, look, we're not giving up these guys. So if we're not going to give up roster players, we want to have depth. You don't get depth by trading one guy and bringing in another. And you definitely don't build your franchise by getting rid of the players that are probably the future of the franchise. So he said, what you're left with is picks. And so that was the way he looked at it with giving up the first rounder. But he also said, we got two players for it. So you kind of look at it as we gave up half a first round pick for each of these two players. So I just thought that was really interesting on him just to say and give some Stars fans a little bit of breathing, little easy breathing now going to March 7th that most likely, unless there's a massive guy available, the names that people have been throwing around that nobody wants to see leave will be involved in any trades, which I think is good.
Yeah, it's important because we saw the news last night. The salary cap is going up, and it's going to go up substantially over the next 3 seasons. And I think that is going to. There's two things. One, it's going to change the game quite a bit. And two, but now knowing general managers now have a blueprint of what to expect over the next 3 years, so they can plan out their rosters. Luddy, you want that Jacob Trouba move? There's a little bit more room in the salary cap next year, or you could go on the cheaper side and maybe just go and get Radko Gudas and add to your defense.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I like both of them, but I think Trouba to me seems like there's just a little bit more upside versus Gudas, but I'd be okay with either one of them. But again, it has to fit into what the blueprint of this team is. I mean, you're not going to bring in a guy just because some guy sitting on a bench over here is telling you love the way that he runs people around and scares the hell out of them.
Yeah. What I thought was interesting too that goes off that a little bit is we asked Nill why now? Why did it he had said he wasn't going to do anything until after the break. So what changed? And he said two things were really big. One, I wrote about this earlier, I think either last week or 2 weeks ago, about how the leadership group has just driven this team through the adversity. And that is 10 times more important now with the recent injuries. The Stars were the best team in the NHL from the Christmas break basically on till now and had their best month of the season in January, missing the players they had, dressing lineups of 8 rookies, all these crazy things. And the leadership group has just delivered exactly what they needed. Specifically, they mentioned Jamie Benn about 8 times over and over again and what he's done to step up. So he said, honestly, looking at that, plus seeing the market, and I truly believe the Stars were also looking at Marcus Pettersson, who was traded to Vancouver last night, and I think that the Vancouver was also looking at Ceci, so it's probably something where Dallas sees Pettersson gone and says, look, we got to get one of these guys. And that's what I think kind of sped it up as well. But Jim Nill actually said he wanted to reward this team for what they've done. Like we don't want to just keep pushing this team down the line and saying, keep going out there and scratching and clawing with 9 rookies and guys playing on one leg or guys sick. And they deserve to get a little bit of help here. And that's exactly what they got. And a couple of really good players who I talked to Casey DeSmith. Casey's played with both of these guys before. And Casey said like he's really excited for both guys. He says Granlund is, I think Jim Nill called him the Finnish Army knife, which was hilarious. But
Instead of the Swiss Army knife?
Instead of the Swiss Army knife, which is funny.
Nice.
He'll fit right in. Obviously, he's got the Finns here. No issue with how he's going to fit in here. But Casey said he's just underrated everywhere he goes. He's deceptive. He's creative. He scores goals wherever he goes. I think he has 15 goals and 40 something points this year in 50 games with San Jose. He just seems to always find a way to create offense, no matter what team he's on. And tell me that's not what this team is looking for. A guy who's going to put the puck in the net. He's not a guy who's going to drive a line. He's going to complement a line, maybe with a Duchesne or someone that really drives a line. It's just a good fit. And then for Ceci, he's a big part of Edmonton's run. He's a veteran guy. He can block a lot of shots. Casey just said exactly what we would imagine he's going to be, is that he's just going to be the solid defensive defenseman that helps in all situations. He can play up and down the pairings, and he can help in a lot of different ways. Now, I believe he's also left-handed, so the Stars are now deep in left-handed defensemen, as they have been, but this team got better than they were yesterday. I think that's
Are you
the
talking
simple
about
way of
Ceci?
summing it up. Yes.
Right-handed.
There it is.
Don't
There
you
it is.
remember we did
I was
the
hoping
list
for it.
Don't you remember the list of all the expiring defensemen that we went through and talked about? Who do you like? Who do you not like?
Yeah.
Right-handed Cody Ceci.
Boom. So that helps even more then. That fills a hole that they obviously have had since the beginning of the year.
Sam, let's talk briefly. We have some super chats we have to get to, and they're going to try. I thought we were going to do a 10-minute pod, and now we're doing a 60-minute emergency pod. And then our viewers are going to say, let's see how long we can string them along. Nils Lundkvist news is obviously tough, right? The other roster, Luds and I went through this already in the show. The other roster transactions, Kyrou, McDonald, Marchman on IR, all just about getting to the salary cap ceiling or as close as they could before using Sagan and Lundkvist for LTIR. Now they have $12.3 million. Well, now they have maybe $4 million or so because of using about $8 million for Cody Ceci and Mikael Granlund. We'll have to wait and see how the numbers all shake out. But this is and Luds and I have talked about this at length, but for your take on it, disappointing for Nils Lundkvist, who I think had really taken a positive step in his development as a Dallas Star and NHL defenseman.
Yeah, not just a positive step either, right? Jim Nill straight up said he earned the trust of this coaching staff this year, and he gave him full credit for it. And I think we talked a little bit about it with all the work he's done. Mike Heika talked about how when he first got here, his legs were stick thin, and he's turned into a big, solid, strong leg defenseman. He's worked hard off the ice. He works like crazy on the ice, which made it even weirder that he was kind of pushed through that injury. They did say that he's been playing with it for a little bit now. I know that the injury he missed time with earlier in the year when I was in Tampa and Raleigh was a lower body, so it wasn't related to that. But somewhere between that and Christmas is when he sustained that injury in a game, and it stinks for him. He took the deal of let me show you and let me prove it, and that's exactly what he did. He earned the trust. Me and Luds talked about it a bunch about how he just looked like a different player defensively. I believe he was only going to get better, and he was going to get more offense and start to push even more. So it's a bummer for him specifically. It's a bummer for the team to lose him. I mean, they lost 3 of their top 6 defensemen in a short period of time. It's just tough for Nils Lundkvist and for the team to handle. The way of looking at it is, did he do enough to earn another one of these, deals where he comes in again next year? I don't know. I don't know where this team will be, but it's just a bummer to see, because I think we don't know what his playoffs would have looked like. We don't know how much they would have used him, especially against bigger teams, but I think he earned all he got this year so far.
Well, let me ask you about this. As Sam just said, I don't know if he'll earn another deal. He's an RFA the Stars have control over, and he showed serious progress. He's a right-handed young defenseman that still has, you hope, his peak years in front of him. There's no way Jim Nill is going to let go of an asset like that. So I think the least they would do would qualify him, if not try to get him re-signed for longer term, because if this year had played out like last year, where he was playing 3 to 5 minutes and not playing in any serious situations down the stretch, and you're going, man, he's just not moving forward, maybe they would say, you know what, best for both parties if we just separate and try another situation. For me, it's a no-brainer that Dallas is going to at least hang on to Nils Lundkvist as an asset. Not, maybe a trade, maybe they do something else with him, but they're not going to let him walk for nothing after what he did this year.
Again, TBD for me. It's for me. I'm waiting to see how this season plays out. You'd be surprised on, a trip to the finals, the Stanley Cup. How many other players want to come and play for you? You know what I'm saying? When you still have a lot of pieces there. So you never know. And again, I think that I agree with everything that Sam just said and you said, Owen, about Nils and his progression and his progress this year and what Jim said about him earning the trust. That was obvious because he was playing in those minutes that we didn't see him play. And Sam, before you came on, right when we got started, I said, I'm almost relieved to hear that they put him on IR and there was an injury, because I was getting concerned that it had something to do with his size or his playing that we saw happen to him last year. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just that now we have an answer why he wasn't in the lineup, which we didn't know that prior to that. So, yeah, as far as keeping him around, I agree. I think he's going to – but I think you can always upgrade when it comes to size. And again, I look at certain D pairs, but you can't all have, redwood forest trees back there all the time either. So we'll see how the rest of the season plays out for him. I have one question for you guys, though.
Well, go ahead. So –
since we're doing this pod and now we're going into hour number 2, does this mean we get Monday off?
Boy, it should.
I mean, I think we've got to find a way to say, hey, we've done an extra show.
Uh-oh. Wait.
Uh-oh. John's joining the chat.
No.
Well, how about Thursday then?
Dang.
Guess what? We have over 220, I think 225 viewers right now. At the end of an hour on a Saturday of an emergency pod. Should we get to some super chats?
Yeah, I was just going to say one quick thing. I don't know if you guys covered Granlund and Ceci are scheduled to fly in tonight and play in the game tomorrow. So we're not sure if Dallas might try to slip in an optional morning skate. They're not scheduled to have any sort of
not
skate
with
tomorrow.
A 5:00 game.
Yeah, so
there's no way they'd have to do like a 7 a.m.
It might be like
tomorrow's
that
random
trade and. It's
a
big day. Big day. I asked. I forget
it's
which
a big
player
alumni
was.
skate.
Someone was like, "Are you going to the alumni game?" And they were like, "When's that?"
Yeah.
Oh dear! Don't.
So we got to spread the word. We got to spread the word.
Tell me
we got to spread the word.
You guys see the super chat that just came in? GM Ben. No.
Nice.
Sorry, Lud, you don't get Monday off.
I do want to say one thing. I did not get further confirmation on this, but I did hear some murmurs that Mr. 91, Tyler Seguin, was on the ice this morning before practice, which is a good sign on his timeline. He was skating.
Was he out with a bucket?
No, he was skating. So
how about
take that with what you will. That's got to be a positive timeline for someone that was walking on a crutch.
It's going to be months still, so I'm not getting too
for sure.
Just yet.
Just saying it's not a bad sign. That's for sure.
By the way, Ardell just said in the chat that Luds is going to run Sevy at the alumni skate.
Sevy's not playing.
No, I don't think he's playing.
Oh, it's because he's on TV. He's got to do the
no, he's come down and played before, so that's no excuse. Yeah. Sevy comes down, he gets there about 5 minutes later.
When we get Sevy on our show, whenever that is, we are going to have to ask him why he ducked out of the alumni game. That is going to be one of my questions for sure.
Should be.
Our fans need to know, right? Okay, so let's go to the super chats, and then we'll let everybody go off on their separate Saturdays. Start with Corey Dudley, a Masterton and Stanley Cup year. Steak is back on the menu, bots. I think Corey's been drinking already. I think he means on the menu, boys. But he's clearly excited about the trade, and he should be, right?
I don't know what that thing means.
Yes.
Are you excited about the trade?
He should be excited.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Get ready, boys.
There we go. All right,
again, listen, I kind of hold it a little bit because you can pick up superstars and sometimes they don't fit into the lineup. Just ask the guys in Nashville, Tennessee, how picking up certain guys work. So, it's got to fit.
By the way, quick side note, because we were talking about Seguin just now. If we didn't already believe that Tyler Seguin was out for the rest of the regular season, him being placed on LTIR is just a sign that that's the case. So great that he skated, or the rumor is that he's on the ice, Sam, but we're not going to see him until the playoffs. There's no doubt, because you cannot try to squeeze his $9.5 million of cap space, even prorated, back under their cap with these ads if he's going to play a regular season. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the next one. Our next one goes from, this is the Jordan Burner account, I've been told. Talk hockey with me. A little DeSmith 99 cup year. Dang it, no Carlson, I guess, Luds.
There's still time. There's still time. You can slide him in there.
We're talking about Trouba and Gudis, but it could be Erik Karlsson as your extra guy. Wouldn't you just love it?
Oh, boy.
Bing bang.
Wait till you hear that rant.
I can't wait to hear that rant. Sarcastic remarks. A nice little Brendan Morrow, or it could be Oscar Beck, and the year after they won the Stanley Cup. Love this trade by Nill. Ceci is a decent fill-in while Miro comes back, and Granlund is a guy that will fit in perfectly with Finnish Mafia. It's also going to be fun to root for Granlund at the Four Nations tournament face-off. That's true. An extra Finn. By the way, guys, I don't know if you just saw this, but Hockey Finland just said that Jani Hakanpää will not play at the Four Nations. I know he was trying to get back and do it. So that means that Finland, Luds, is without Heiskanen and Hakanpää, and that is going to severely limit their blue line at this tournament. Your buddy Yuri's going to have some work to do.
They're going to have to defend
day to day.
They're going to defend.
As a group, you mean?
Yeah, as a group.
Yeah.
Very Ledman style. Can't score.
And Esa Lindell's going to play 30 minutes a game.
Yep. I'm sure Jim Nill's going to love that, and Pete DeBoer.
Yeah, big time. Eating shots and everything. Perfect.
Yeah, nothing like Esa playing half a hockey game during the 2 weeks of Four Nations. Guys, I believe that we are done with super chats unless somebody wants to keep us on late, which that's fine. So I will just ask you any final thoughts about this massive day emergency pod. Mikael Granlund, Cody Ceci acquired from San Jose for a first and conditional third. Then we have Sagan and Lundkvist on LTIR with Lundkvist season-ending shoulder surgery. And we have a game tomorrow where Ceci and Granlund are expected to be in victory green against the Columbus Blue Jackets. What are your final thoughts, Lids?
Well, it doesn't ease the disappointment of having Miro out of the lineup. I don't think there's anybody that they're going to bring into the lineup that would be, overshadow that thought of mine. But I think this seems to be the move that you can bolster what you have here right now, and you're adding to it, and you're adding, you're on both sides of it. For me, I think you're not getting away from what this team has been doing on the defensive side of things, and I think they're adding guys. And again, I just wonder, do we get another guy like 63? Because 63 has been really good this year. I mean, do you get another guy like that? Because if that's what he's going to bring and add, maybe a little more size, maybe a little bit more physicality, not much, but maybe a little bit more, a little heavier in the corners and along the walls. But I think if you're adding that to it, it's a nice piece. And I think for Ceci, it seems to fit in with the group that we've got there right now. And you're not going back, or you're not going forward. You can just kind of move along.
So you have Granlund, who wears 64, Luds. You have Dodonov that wears 63. This may be, I don't even know. When's the last time the Stars had a couple of players wearing numbers in the 60s on the same roster?
Development
some history.
Ribeiro was wearing 63, wasn't he? Ribeiro was 63.
I think you're right. Yes.
I don't ever remember.
And Roussel ones were 60 or 61. And
that was really early. And then remember when he switched to 21, he traded, he bought everybody a new jersey, which was really cool of him.
It's amazing.
So, Sam, your final thoughts before we wrap this one up and send our producer John off to the Super Bowl in New Orleans?
Yeah, I think Lud said it all. I'm not going to recap too much. We know where we're at. The one thing I will say is I do not believe this team is done. Jim Nill said they are continuing to look, and they will be very aware of what's going on, probably now back to his original plan of after the Four Nations break. Other than that, I'm going to go meditate in the sauna for 2 hours to try to recover from this morning.
Yeah, it was exhausting, but guess what? We still have almost 220 live viewers. We've had tons of interaction.
I would love to hear from the 225 viewers if we deserve a Monday off.
In the chat.
Send it to GM Ben.
Don't say super chat.
GM Ben already said no, but I'm sure there's a few in the chat that would love to help us. Sam is going to to a Super Bowl. Oh, we have to end with some toilet humor. Oh, Ben is still in the chat, and guess what? Still no days off in the National Hockey League. You're right, Adam. You're absolutely right. Court is trying to say yes. Everybody else says no. You guys are harsh. You know why, Luds? Because they need us on that wall. They want us on that wall.
We'll be there then.
All right. We will have a pregame show at 4:15 tomorrow afternoon. We will, all four of us, Sean, Luds, Sam.
Oh, wait, stop.
Oh, wait.
You reading that one?
Luds is excited.
Oh, they got beers
on Monday, boys.
No,
beers and Uber.
Beers.
Beers and Uber.
We have a Monday show too, don't we?
Is it a regular show?
Well, we must have a regular daily show.
Did you just ask if we have a Monday show?
I didn't know.
Yeah, Ben owes Luds beer. I can tell you that. I honestly thought we were going to do a 10-minute emergency pod, and now we've done an hour and 10 minutes.
This
so let's wrap it up. Pre-game show tomorrow, 4:15. We will have all four of us on the show. Katya will be in for producer John. She's going to be doing the next week. She's by the way, head of production. She's the boss, and she's the producer for the Cowboys show. So we will have some fun, and she and Luds like to tease each other, so that will be interesting. And then it'll be Sean and myself doing the post-game show after the Blue Jackets game with maybe some interesting Sam and Luddy cameos from Luds being in the alumni game. If you're going to the AAC tomorrow, don't leave. Stick around and watch Luddy and the rest of the Stars alumni play a green and white game. There's going to be, 30, 35 alums there, Luds?
Well, that's how many will be at the dinner tonight. I don't know how many are going to be there for the game tomorrow. We'll start with that.
The number is going to dwindle.
It dwindles. Yep. It's going to be tough. That'll be fun. For Sam Nestler, for Craig Ludwig, for our producer, John Anderson, I'm Owen Newkirk. Thanks to you very much for joining us for this huge emergency pod. A trade. Big things happening here in Dallas Stars land on DLS. And stay with us all year as we continue to cover it. So long, everyone. Have a good weekend.
We all silly like the mayor.